Today is an extra special day. It's not only me and Dr. Elena, but we have Rosana, Aaron Esparza, and Ofelia Esparza to join us
La
on
mera mera.
to join us on this sacred occasion, this day where we're not only going to honor the day of rest, the day of the sun, but we're also honoring those that have come before us. And it's a really beautiful conjunction that we have. We're here on the day after the full moon on a Sunday where the sun comes in after, well, the sun's been present through the moon and now into the daytime. And it's on the inception of Day of the Dead and even for tomorrow. So it's a really powerful yeah, the powerful moment. And as we create this space, we want to not only invite you into our space that is being created at the moment, but into that space that has been created from the moment that anyone left the physical on this earth. And we invite you to keep an open mind and perhaps allow oneself to take a different perspective on the transition from the physical to spirit and from spirit back into the physical. With that being said, I think it's anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
Well, I'm just going to welcome everyone once again. We're just going to call in the energies from the four directions. We call in our ancestors. We honor the sacred ground that we come from, the sacred ground that we speak from. We honor those that have gone before us to make this sacred, and we ask for your protection and permission to transmit and
Transmute the energy.
transmute the energy that you have planted, and reaching out to all of you in this amazing platform here. And we welcome our ancestors and our guides and our teachers to provide some insight and be present with us and enjoy this time together, since this is that energy. And we come humbly recognizing that we too are spirit, and fumbling through our spiritual nature, we are learning to connect and realize how close and how one we really are. And we thank our special guests, and we ask you to reach out and touch us with your energy as well, and that we would be one love and one heart and one wisdom. Oh, thank you.
And with that, we touch and connect.
You to me to you. And we've kind of, for those of you who are concerned that we're not wearing masks, we're in a bubble. We live right next to each other. We're constantly in contact. So this is just in case you're worried or you're concerned. We are our own little microcosm here, and so don't be concerned. And plus, we also enroll in the idea that we are protected through our actions and our consciousness and the foods we eat. So in a way, there's no way, we're kind of untouchable in that form. So just so you know, there's a different confidence about how we move in the world, so that you have that out of your head and we carry on.
And then once we stepped outside of our bubble, we wear masks.
Yes. Go ahead.
I was taking it.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome my mother, Ofelia Esparza, and my sister again. I just wanted to, Chrissy and I decided we wanted to have some other insights. The last time we talked about the soul's journey and who we become in our cycles. And one of the things that came up, which my sister brought up, and we thought, God, we really want to dive into that, was this generational healing as the new days come. And I thought that was so appropriate for Dia de los Muertos. And we wanted to take a deeper look at how the altars work and without really, I mean, let's just go with the first experience when someone dies. Our first experience is very, visceral. And so what some of us might expect, Christine and I talked about this earlier, is like, death, like the Grim Reaper comes and takes us. And there's this energy of this darkness and doom and finality. And that seems to be prevalent in media and stories. And I believe that this cultural ritual allows us to step beyond that. And so maybe you could address just like, how does Dia de los Muertos, or the Day of the Dead, or the altar in general, help us transcend that first experience of death, having someone who we love or something that we love pass on.
Well, death is not the end of our life, our existence. Uh, the ancient Mexicanos believed, and I believe, that it's another phase of life. You can't have death without life and life without death. And so that transition is painful and uh, a time for grieving for me, of reflection, but also Rosanna likes to talk about gratitude, gratitude that we had those lives that have are past in our lives. But I think just the concept that you continue and then you're still continuing on your life's journey even after death. And so it gives us, the people, we who are still here, it gives us so much hope, because we know that we're not just a metaphor, we're not just um, a mortal being that's gone forever. We continue in our, not only our spirit, but in the memory and in the hearts, and in your everyday life. You continue as part of the loved ones you leave behind, uh, physically.
Yeah, and for me, my relationship with death starts really early because I lived with my grandmother. I'm one of 9 children, and um, my grandmother was part of like a different senior citizen groups, and I was always with her. So they were dying left and right, her friends, because they were all older. And so I would go to all these funerals, and I remember somewhere in the back of my head, I remember her saying, if you touch the body, then you won't dream about them. So at every funeral, I would touch all these people that I really, I knew who they were, but I didn't really know them. So, there's that relationship with death. And of course, when my grandfather died, I I don't remember anything after touching him. I think I probably freaked out because I blocked it out. But since then, I've realized that it's not this dark tunnel that we go through, and learning about near death experiences that people have, and how how thin the veil is, and on the other side of it is light and love and bliss. And I see my dad, my grandfather, everyone in that light when I think about them. And it is so close to us. They are so close to us. But during these times of Day of the Dead, it is a celebration because, yeah, this is the time. This is the time where, you know, we're converging together, and it's like there's a pass, I guess, but I just feel like that closeness is always there. And today and tomorrow, we celebrate that closeness.
I like to see these days as there are these, the veil, as you said, is already thin. But once we enter a conscious act of paying attention to the portal, which I feel like that is they are a reflection of that you're consciously opening that portal and joining that procession of life, because like I said, it's part of what coming into this dimension, being on earth, knowing that the body will not be here infinitely. It's just part of the ride. It's not it, and if we fool ourselves that it's not, then I mean that was maybe where pain could come in. But other than that, knowing that we are on this journey, that there's a knowing in ancient times that one of the reasons that we dance and we even honor and speak to what many people call the gods or forces that are unseen, it's kind of like of a reminder of like, hey, we're here, we're still remember that we're here and we're part of this ongoing procession that's going on in the universe.
Yeah.
When when we tap into that, we really get this jolt of life force. And this is one of the things that I thought was so special about having Ophelia and Sana here, is that you know um, we see a lot of people come through here with many, by that I mean the clinic that here at Just Breathe Healing, that have many different situations they need help with. And we have had people, and we know people who need help because they can, especially they can see spirit, they can see sometimes dismembered spirits, and sometimes that brings them fear.
Yeah.
And I thought it's so special to have Ophelia and Sana because they consciously go into the realm of the passing and of death, and they make something beautiful out of it. They make a conscious relationship. Not only is it, they don't only do it for their relatives, but I mean, they go and they do it for the city. They've gone to different states, so they're constantly, and even on days that are not Day of the Dead, right? So they're constantly opening this portal for others, also for spirits that they have no bloodline to, and yet here they are enjoying the process and having beautiful words to attach to that experience. And that is definitely one of the reasons I thought it would be so powerful to speak on that today with you all.
Well, what you said, Chrissy, about that portal opening, and I think when you consciously accept that, it doesn't ever close really, because you have daily connections. And one of the beautiful things that I have experienced, and other people tell me they've experienced, especially uh, immediately or the few days after someone has passed physically on Earth, is they see signs. For me and for many people, they tell me the hummingbird or the monarch butterfly, which is an ancient icon of the soul of our loved ones, and that really just cements that belief, that concept that we don't really leave, uh, or that our loved ones, the soul is with us forever, and we become conscious of it because we we open our heart and our mind to it, and we see the signs, and the presence is what gives us hope.
Yes.
Because what what a legacy of hope we have, to be loved and cherished even after death. and 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 I like to talk about the ancient Mexica poet who said that our life here is temporary. We're only here for a short time, and I love this metaphor, this analogy of saying, gold tarnishes, flowers wilt, uh, and today, of course, papel picado disintegrates. The candles and incense burns out. Everything is temporary, just like our own life here on Earth. But the belief of leading a life of flor y canto, of flower and song, which is actually a way of life, of spoken word, of how we live our life. And I know that it exudes love and respect and all these wonderful things. You want to connect with the people you love, and just like our that's like a template for us to follow, to live a life of color and gratitude and connection and beauty in our souls and with each other. So it is so multi-layered that for me it's become really not only a way of life as a work that I do, but as a way of thinking and living. Um, to me, the ofrenda is a larger concept, as I just mentioned. And that's, I think, preserving that or passing that on. I'm not like, I know I'm not going to be here that many years, but I know my grandchildren, great grandchildren will at least know about this. And they're already showing little, they make, playing with making an altar for the dog or the cat or their make believe friends. But they already have this little seed in them that's a way of honoring.
And that's a beautiful exemplification of why these acts are so powerful. When Sana mentioned that her grandmother advised her to touch the body so that she won't dream about it, it really woke up something in me, because one of the powerful things, first of all, Day of the Dead worldwide is like it calls people who are not of Mexica heritage. It still calls them, or they're attracted to it, right? And I believe it's because of the the spirit we attach to it, since it's not one of darkness and wool or fear. And that's something that the Mexica have gifted, is a colorful life, as you said, flor y canto, and an acceptance of what is. I know my daughter, she's in a medical program that is for Native youth, and one of the women there one day was talking about, she's Inuit, and how when they were doing the cadaver, when they're training,
Yes, yes.
There was a little conflict for her, because the Inuit don't touch the dead body, and there's a fear attached to it that you could get death sickness. And there's one thing, and I know that they're not the only people, but that's like just a prime example. And I always am in awe of our ancestors, that there wasn't fear attached to life. It's like everything, with the knowing that we are connected to everything, then there's so little to fear of anything external, because we're generating it from within. And that beauty is something that brings in these qualities and these values that we're mentioning. I mean, to me, even the setup that you what that you very much so utilize. It's interesting because you spoke about doorways last time we were talking, and about transition in doorways. And a lot of people may not know that a triangle is actually what has been signal is a symbol for a doorway from very ancient times. So the fact that the altar is already set up in a pyramid shape, and then the layers to it, that that signifies life too, right? That there's the foundation, and then there's a tier into every step along that way. I've always been It really opens something up inside, just with that visualization.
It's interesting that you bring up geometry. I learned about the several uh, configurations through Josefina Quesada, my dear friend from Mexico, an elder artist that I met many years ago. And we had long sessions. She actually mentored me, and in our talk, she told me about the golden. Is it the golden triangle?
Yeah.
That configuration. Then she went back and said, how for centuries, even beyond, this civilization that we're in now, that was a format or a configuration of many things. I mean, people related to architecture, yes, but it's also for a template of the cosmos of I don't know all the details, but it was really interesting, and I started to look it up, and it goes back to all ancient civilizations who are Rosana. She could talk about this, how we all come from, no matter what culture. Uh, it's our origin. All origins come from nature and the cosmos, and so that relationship is. I don't know if it's a template, but it forms our way of thinking, our way of honoring the 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 cosmic heavens, the animal, all the kingdoms, physical and organic kingdoms that we know about or that we have learned about. It's a deep subject, and I associate it with art and geometry and science, but in the natural world. And so it's an interesting thing that I explored a little bit when I was an elementary school teacher, and so that was a basis of my belief in teaching children about art and science and geometry was always related because and I realized that is the focus. Everything it comes from these patterns, these templates of knowledge and of understanding.
Then we get some insight that the universe is expansive and that we're all connected. These these symbols, these numbers, these colors, the frequencies, we start to feel how they're all connected. And just kind of going back to how that's related to life and death, you start to realize that the only difference is there's a physical cover and then there isn't, you know. And just we'll get back to your thought. I just wanted to throw in that idea that, when I was explaining to our 4 and 5 year olds, Aliyah and Savannah, they're 5 and 6 now, about death when, they had an uncle who passed away and the dog passed away. And I talked about, death in general. And they were like, well, but what happens? What happens after the person dies? And I took them with me to a funeral in the desert and they saw the coffin go down and there's like, well, where do they go? I said, well, the body goes in the ground and it gets returned to the earth. I said, but something happened before that. And they're like, well, what? So I explained it like this. I said, we have these skins and these organs, and inside is a big giant spirit, but it's so big. And when we die, it's like somebody took a zipper and opened us up, and we were able to step out, and a bright light like the sun shined and was released from the suit of our skin. And it got to be all things like the light, like the sun, everywhere, all at once. And they were just like, they looked up and they were like, whoa. So the spirit is everywhere. Yeah. So you know how, you only got to see your uncle when you went to go visit him? And they were like, yeah. It's like, well, now he's not in that skin. So he can just be everywhere all the time. So when you think about him, he's there. When you're with him, when you look at him, when you in your heart or in your mind, he's there, like the sun is there. It's just all the time. And it was just something that they could grasp and they could say, that's okay. That for me is okay. And so and that goes back to like the expansion of these numbers and the symbols. Our physical bodies, we're so addicted to them. When we think they're gone and done, um, it does feel final, and yet it's not the end of the story, like you mentioned in the beginning, and it's not the truth. It's not the true story. Um,
And it's a great segue into remembrance, as you're saying, since, like you said, they're now everywhere. And when we set up an altar, we're a lot of times honing into the that spirit and how we knew it, right? Our relation to it, our relationship to it. And I was speaking with Elena earlier about how important it is to have this intention of what it is you want to invite in, right? Because you're saying, "Hey, hi, we're here, join us." And with my husband, for anyone who already knew him, he definitely lived highs, extreme highs and lows, and everything in between that. So there I have wide spectrum of what I can pull forth. And I do choose to pull forth the things that were at the basis of his soul that he wanted to accomplish on this earth, and the things that he did, and that those things that exalted his spirit. And I
Mhm.
find it's so important because, with my daughters who have a direct blood lineage to him, they are constantly forming what their relationship to that part of them is. And I think it's so important that they have something beautiful like that, because I was also sharing with her that I have an aunt who passed away when she was very young. She was 13. She's from my father's side of my family. And I know a lot about, I actually relate very closely to her, even though I've never met her, because of the type of relationship she had with my father and the type of relationship I have with my father. And when him and my grandmother, when they would talk about her, I felt a resonance, and a kinship to it. And only because of my dad do I know about her, not so much because of my grandmother, because for some of the family members, it's a little painful for them to talk about it. But so on my altar, I always include her because I feel like it's important for her to be exalted
Mhm.
and talked about and remembered in a way that, because she's within us, that presence is also brought forth not only on the altar, but then within me and then within my daughters. And
You get to carry her with
yes.
you.
Yeah.
Do you so even that kind of experience, it's like, where how how can we use the altar as a way of not just connecting but healing? Because you said they didn't talk about her.
Mhm.
How many times do we not talk about those who have passed for, because of the pain
Mhm.
or the suffering, or and how can we bring also healing using the altar?
Yeah, for us in our conversations with many people about making ofrendas and Day of the Dead, the the base of it is gratitude.
Mhm.
So, we suffer a loss. Somebody is, moves to the other side, and we feel like there's this big hole, you know, and we feel it, and yes, we need to grieve and feel it and cry, and because it's our reality. They are absent now, their physical body is absent, but with the ofrenda there's this uh what you're setting an intention, like, who is this ofrenda for?
Mhm.
you know it's for my husband, my sister, my tia. And so you don't just build it and put pictures on it and light candles and it's done. It's like I feel compelled to remember her, to honor her, and to say thank you. Thank you for your existence in my life, your essence as part of my essence, because we were connected. And every time we connect with somebody, their essence is it resonates, and that's why Dia de los Muertos resonates with the entire world. We all have ancestors. We all suffer losses,
Yes.
and it resonates because of the the idea that when we create altars, we're bringing in the four elements: fire, water, air, earth, and that's part of the gratitude too, recognizing that we're on this plane and we're it's not just a gift, it's our existence as one. We're all one. And because we're all one, you know, our connection to um, nature and our connection to the cosmos is common in every single human being. Even though some people are not attached to their culture in 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 such a physical way, we live in East LA. We have all these different types of celebrations, and Dia de los Muertos is one of them, and there's so many others, and the food, the textures, all of it is so available and close. And then there's people that are detached from that uh, palatable um, connection. Let's say you're from Europe or wherever, and there are indigenous lineages in every part of the world and in every person, but that connection to nature and the cosmos, it needs to be, for some of us, it needs to be mined, because um, that we need to find it. And Day of the Dead feels like that kind of attachment, or connection.
Yeah, it becomes a tool to reconnect and find a place inside that you feel a commonality. So
Yeah.
it becomes a platform for you to, or like you say, a portal. Maybe that's the reason for the art, so that we step through to meet what's on the other side.
Yeah.
There-
And I think the process, to a point that Chrissy said, or that you asked about healing, the process of doing an altar, a big part of it is your intention. Yes, your remembrance, and I feel that if you that intention really compels you to learn. If you don't know the person that well, for instance, an ancestor or a grandmother that you didn't grow up with, like ours, I knew Mama Pola, who was my great grandmother, but it was like as if I knew her intimately through my mother's stories and her strong connection to her. And then that's something that I want my children and my grandchildren and great grandchildren to know who she was and why was she important in our life. And so this uh, that I feel that you feel compelled to know more about this person if it's not someone in your immediate life or environment. Even when we're doing an altar for someone else, you do some research. You want to find out in order to present to offer a beautiful altar for a person that is not in your uh, your knowledge or
Any living
in your yes. So for this, in the same way, researching and learning and finding stories and connections with your own family is such a healing process. We are, and we always say we're never alone. We have ancestors beyond our immediate family that have been there watching us. We just have to remember them and invoke them to be part of our life, to be part of our prayers, if you will. Want to say that it's a beautiful way of forming your life, of your support. I like to tell students, call on your ancestors, find out about one that is very strong, that has been remembered, or many people know about different generations. Why is that? How could that ancestor still there, waiting for you to discover them or to invoke their name? And you start building this pantheon of ancestors that follow you wherever you go to the rest of your life, and it's a healing process. And then the other point that I wanted to mention that Chrissy touched is, when someone's life ends through violence, through horrible disasters. Uh, People like we've done so many altars for Las Mujeres de Juarez, the murdered and missing women, with no resolve of their who and how they came to the end of their life. So when we honor people in groups like that, even if we didn't know that, but I try to think about how they would be remembered by their families, if they were a sister, a brother, a wife, a comadre. How would they be honored and remembered by their families? Not how they died, but how they were loved and how they were part of somebody's life. And so that is another part of the ofrenda. It offers healing, because you want to think of the light and the joy that that person brought to someone in their family. It might have been just a short time, but that's what you, like Chrissy said, those are the things that stay with you, and that keeps their memory alive. And I'm sure that's part of the healing thing.
To add to the part of generational healing and what is being brought up, I feel that I want to share actually that just by, as I said, in my case, my tia was somebody I didn't personally get to meet. Yet, because of, I also mentioned the relationship she had with my father. One thing my father always said was, my father is a strong person, and he's somewhat of a, he has a bully type personality amongst his siblings. And that being said, when I was coming into my womanhood, and you have different kinds of issues with your father at that point, and me wanting to approach that, I wasn't at that time I didn't really know how to do it. And as I began to acknowledge my tia, and like I said, that he would say that even as a young girl, she'd be the one that would stand up to him and be like, "Shut up," basically, if she needed to. I The more I recognized her, and the more I was able to see that within myself, other things opened up as well. One is what she was bringing, even in her youth, to the family was something I was able to expand on. And that's without being told, like, here, I'm handing you over this baton, It was just a knowing within me that to bring something that was already intended to be brought to this lineage, I had her support, or the support of that part of my DNA, that part of what we're made up of in that family. And then also some of the other some of the other struggles, or yeah, I would say challenges that the different people in the family were continuing, because of something that maybe you saw it in your grandfather, and now like your cousin has it.
The patterns that were carried on.
Yes, the destructive patterns that were being perpetuated. I really had more insight to it by connecting, and the connection was just the intention of putting like her picture and my uncle's picture, but then also encouraging my family to speak on it, and then just being still and having that connection. It's truly, you allow now that part of you that, like, exactly like Ophelia said, we now carry this pantheon. We're now acknowledging the pantheon that we're carrying. And once we do that, we're able to truly channel it and feel and make resolve out of some of the things that are flowing through us.
Yeah, I feel like there's opportunity to heal our ancestors.
Even help them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I like that.
it's through our own healing, our own realizations, our own bringing conflicts together in our own selves, and creating a new gift for yourself, a new um, reality for yourself, and then bringing it through your body and sending it into the past and into the future for generations and for generations. And if you do that, I feel it it really grounds you in who you are today. You know, if that healing, we all need healing in our past. Not every one of our ancestors were perfect.
Stellar.
Some were strong spiritual people, and others were not. There were polar opposites of that. My grandfather was a good example of that.
Yeah.
And his wife was a saint, and they had a hard life, and they had 14 kids. My dad was the oldest, but I have the opportunity to send healing to my grandmother, to my grandfather, and all their parents and grandparents and great grandparents. And it may seem how could you do that? But it's doable. You just need to sit with the right presence and maybe somebody to help you facilitate that.
I actually have a perfect story to tell. You just reminded me, both of you, Mom and Chrissy and you, when my grandfather died, um, grand no, when my grandmother died, my dad's mom, Grandma Dora, it was really hard because we saw her as a saint, and I remember sitting in the church, and my dad wasn't a church person, so when he was in the church, I was sitting next to him, and it was really, he was broken, it hurt him, and I said, Dad, this is so sad. It's like, um, but at least it won't hurt so much when Grandpa Mac dies. That's what I said. I said that, and because he scared me, and he was, to me, my experience with my grandpa Mac was like he was so loud and he was mean, and he just wasn't a sweet, gentle person, and so I was not going to miss him in my mind as an 8-year-old girl when my grandmother died, and he grabbed my face. And he looked at me and he grabbed my face and he said, you need to listen. And I was just shocked because it was an instant response. Like I said, well, at least it won't hurt when grandpa. And boom, he had a response. And the response to me was this: he is the only father I have. If all he knows is my love, then that's what he's going to remember. And I just said, I got it. It was like,
I've never heard you tell this story.
I've only told it to a few people, but I remember him say that to me. And in remembering that, when I remember my dad, or I can take that story and put it into my personal life. You said, how do you do that? How do you heal your ancestors? Well, when he said that to about my grandfather, I thought, I don't know all of who he is. Maybe he had pain in his life. He helped me heal my grandfather just by saying that. And now in my physical life, my present life, when I have a family member or a best friend do something that just like breaks my heart, I go back to that thought my father gave me and I say, I don't know what's up with them, but if I'm the last person that loves them, then I'm going to be the one that loves them. And it heals whatever I feel it might be a transgression against me. And that's how we heal our generational patterns too. But I couldn't have known it if my dad I didn't tell him, and he didn't give me a memory that I could go back to. And I put that on my altar, I have a tiny little altar that I keep in my office, and it's just of my dad when I got married. And it's like the one who he was. He was sick and tired, and yet he was present for me during that time. And I put a bear because he was just so wise.
And that was
he was so wise, and he was just so gentle, and he just was so insightful. And he knew the right thing to say or the right joke to break the tension. And I get to tell this story not just because it's Day of the Dead. I get to tell the story all the time, moment to moment, with my patients, with my friends, to myself. And that heals me, and that heals the relationships I have.
Well, we could probably do a half-hour program on just your dad, what I learned. He was really a wise man, and he was a big, macho-looking guy who many men respected, and he respected many women. And he did tell me at the end of his dad's life, he was, kind of frail, and he would pick him up every single morning, take him to breakfast. Whatever his wish would be, he would keep him busy for half the day and then take him home. And then one day I was remembering some of the, things that had happened with his dad, or that he had told me about his dad when he was a young boy. And I said, it just makes me wonder I wonder how you have, when you talk about how your dad was with your mom or with some of you, how you could he says, how you could be doing this for him all this time. I mean, I admired that. I told him I admired that. He says, well, you know, Negra, he said, he's the only dad I have. I don't have any other, and I'm his oldest son. Why wouldn't I do this for him? He doesn't even remember anyway what he did.
Mm.
And that was, I want him to, at the end of his life, to have someone who loves him.
Mm.
It's really touching.
And you do that when you mention your auntie who didn't have people tell her story. It's like you tell her story, and even though you don't know, it's like you send that love where there's a space, and we have to close those holes.
And it matters because they're present still. One of the things that brings to mind, and I was talking to them about in the morning, was that, as I already mentioned, like my husband had a wide spectrum of presence here on earth. And one of the things is there was a time where he was very um, invested in his own personal growth. And at that time, because he was a social person, he was the type to always invite people into his his dance, I guess, of life, the good and the bad. And so many people knew him. And when he passed away, some people only knew him for that time. Some people knew him only these experiences they had with him. And when he passed away, people telling me like, oh, he changed my life. And I'd be like, oh, really? How? And they'd be like, oh, when he used to take us to the mountains, or because he was vegan, his whole family was vegan, meaning his wife and his children. And, or at work, because he was always so positive, and like my experience with him isn't always so positive, but he had that for so many people that I'm like, those things, because see, that's still a part of that person living with these other individuals. I realized, and that's something I brought together for his ceremony when he passed away, was that there is something that he didn't even know how he's living on. This earth is like multidimensional. All these realities are running at once. And those parts of him are still living in others, and these people, perhaps that affects their children, or and it affects my children. Like when my daughter saw his friends sing for him, and even now when they see people reach out, people painted paintings for him, it touches them and lets them know him in a different light as well. And we keep that alive.
Yeah, I that just really blew my mind right now what you said, Chrissy, about all these different realities that are running at the same time. We have our own perspective of who we are at this moment or who we used to be.
Yes.
And our impact or the essence that we leave behind with people, my essence is all over the place, right? and so is yours.
Yeah.
But in that reality, let's say my friend Teresa, or somebody I used to work with, and when they think about me, they think about me in that moment or in that space of time. And some perspectives are, oh my god, you're a goddess, or God, I don't trust you, or whatever. There's all these things that are happening at the same time.
Yes, it's mind blowing.
It is so that just blew my mind right now. But that's what Day of the Dead. You can bring that context into this and say, you know, there's a part of you that lives in me.
And that
Yes.
journey that you started isn't over. I
Yeah.
see that for him because one of the things I put on his altar recently was, we used to do vision boards together, and I found one that said, "The road is never ending," or that the journey continues, and it was unfinished, but the stuff on it was about like his intentions for his life, and I definitely put that on there because I feel like so in the physical, Chris Robert isn't going to do that in that body. but his spirit came to that conjunction, and his spirit, wherever it transmutes and however it transmutes into, he still could pick up from
Yes.
what he already lived that. So you're only gonna keep going, you know, go back. Or even if you did, you still have what you lived, you know?
This is so amazing what you're saying, because now like Rosanna said, he gets to carry that intention in the memories of us as long as we remember and talk about it and we share it, which is part of what Dia de los Muertos is, right? And it goes to this ancient idea that we have three deaths, you know. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and share it since our time is. And the first death is the death where we exit our last breath and we no longer exist, you know. The second death is when we're buried and no more to be seen on the earth. And the third death, which my mother always reminds us, and the most tragic and horrific death, dreaded death, is to be forgotten. And the tradition of presenting the altares, whether it's Day of the Dead or not, like you have this altar, is to carry on the essence of the soul so that they can fulfill their reality. And that we can fulfill our reality, and we can come together and put all the missing pieces together of this of this essence. The
It's a
parts that
recognition that we're on this ship
yes,
and you haven't left and I haven't left, and we're still going to get to the point that our ancestors entered on the inception and that we're going to achieve, which is just simply to get back to source.
that's it.
And we're here, we're still here, and we're going to keep writing with each other.
Which is why storytelling and gathering together and sharing our memories is so important.
And this is what feeds, you know, just a very basic concept of ofrendas that we always tell people, especially people who are not familiar, that the ofrenda serves to bridge the living and the dead, life and death actually, but it also bridges generations and connects with them. And of course, today it's bridging cultures and even countries. And you know, the thing that I see this year, though, this focus on honoring people, and I think its meaning and its impact is so much, is so strong, and it makes me happy because I don't think it will end for next year. That people will carry this and pass it on to the next, to their friends, their families, and that's what keeps this, sustains this beautiful, spiritual, sacred community celebration.
Thank you. We're opening it up to you, and thank you for your insight and your stories and your wisdom.
Well, I just want to say that thank you for inviting us. You know, I like listening to you guys, your conversations on Sundays, and it's a nice way to start the day. So you know, today's Dia de los Muertos.
Today.
And, you know, I'm in awe of your wisdom. Young women today seem to have this wonderful, or maybe they're expressing it more now, because voicing, you know, such knowledge and sensitivity and caring. There's so much hope we have in the future with our, not only in our own community, but I think they're spreading it. Thank you.
There is that. Thank you, Mom. I really feel that we are passing on what we received, and like you said, maybe we are a little more vocal than our predecessors before us, and we're awkward in that sometimes, but you know, we're, as days, we work with each other to move those, to refine our communication.
There is one question I'll refer to Sana. There is a question. Can you and how I'm gonna add, how would you um honor someone without a physical photo?
Oh, yeah, we do that all the time in our altars. You know, especially when you have family and ancestors that that you know about, and there's never a photo taken, or they're lost, or they got burned, or there wasn't even cameras during that day, and you can use a symbol. You know,
Mhm.
in some of our altars, those symbols are butterflies or hummingbirds or even ojo de Dios,
Mhm.
or
Nice.
several ojos de Dios to represent a group of people or all the unnamed. But if there's someone in particular that you're honoring and you don't have a photograph, it's not a requirement to have a photograph like the Coco movie tries to communicate.
Right.
But
That's good. That's good to know that it
yeah,
doesn't have to be a photo.
yeah, it's not a passport, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to make it like La Frontera, but it wasn't quite accurate. It, it's you can use a symbol, bird, maybe their animal spirit,
Right.
anything. It's your intention that
I
creates.
remember mom did an altar for the last mujer that lived on the Channel Islands, and she just painted a picture of her vision of what she might look like and gave her a name. And also, if you can't remember or you don't have a physical, you can also write their name.
Mhm.
The name is the resonance of that essence, and it has power. And so saying their name and writing it down and having it present is another powerful way of bringing that energy forward.
And your name is sacred. And so that's appropriate, as Rosanna has written a beautiful uh, lesson on that. Just your name. A meditation, just your name.
Yeah, yeah. Your name is sacred. When you were named, there might be some particular meaning that your parents came up with for some vision of you, but ultimately when that first that that word, that name came out of their mouth, it carried with it into this plane the vibration of love.
Amen.
And so that name, it has weight, it has form, and you may not see it physically, but it has a vibration. And let's say your name is Cindy. Well, there's a million Cindys, but that Cindy has her own vibration of
And it's
love.
the whole name.
Yeah.
It's your first and last name,
Yeah.
because that connected you to the form that you incarnated in.
Mhm.
So saying a name, its full strength literally revives that essence, and when you pass it on or you share it, you continue its frequency and vibration
Mhm.
through time and space.
Mhm.
So
Maybe one more question.
what's that?
If
In
there's
in your family, you read off the departed name. Why do you do this beautiful thing?
So I think we just answered that question. Why do we read off the name? And we always say, we end it with like Amado Esparza Presente, because we want to remember that even though we're physically attached to the body, they're beyond the body and they're always present. So we say presente, not for them, but for us to remember, for us to get into that space of it's constant. We're the ones who are finite. With this physicalness is finite.
And I feel that is so powerful. It's profound when I'm invoking my mother's name or my husband's name or my sister or my brother's name, and you say presente. Yes, he still is here.
And it
Just,
vibrates.
yes, it's yes, presente.
Yeah.
And
it's like the earth coming up.
Yes,
Right?
it just
And
for me, I just feel
Well, it is definitely an invocation,
yes,
and it's a powerful one. So when we give each thing that we cannot see and touch, it's assigned power. You definitely will then in turn feel it versus
Yes.
questioning whether it's.
And that feeds our own frequency and vibration. That it's not just to remember them, but it also
Expands you.
expands us.
Mhm.
So when you share that different, when you got that other aspect of Rob, it's like it's expanded you in the process as well. It's like we keep feeding each other in the moment when we bring back these things. So saying a name, the whole name, brings us more energy as well because we are connected to that.
Yeah. I'm connected to my dad's essence in my life, but the story that you shared about grandpa and my dad expanded his essence for me. I'm like, wow, that was awesome.
One more
Yeah.
aspect of him that just blows my mind and makes me a better person, right?
Yeah.
As this time's coming to an end, some of us have not set everything up yet. When Rosana did make an announcement about a couple altars, I'm gonna have her do that again.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have the altar at Grand Park that will be up through tomorrow, and I probably through the election day too. But today at 1 o'clock at Donali Studio, the parking lot between Gaio Grill and Donali Studio, there's going to be a candlelight vigil at 4 o'clock today for the children that we lost in the detention centers. So we invite you to come. It's social distancing. You have to wear a mask, but there will be candles and an ofrenda to those, and it's sponsored by the Chicano Moratorium folks. And also at 4 o'clock, if you don't want to do a physical presence somewhere, there's the virtual Dia de los Muertos event on selfhelpgraphics.com or on SHG1970 on Instagram. So I invite you to that because it's going to be great. There's a lot of great uh, um, poets and artists and the altars that are self help and some music that will be there. And it's I know one of them is Ceci Vestida,
Oh, wonderful.
and I think I said it right.
Is it sound part of it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I invite you to do that as well. So whether you want to do something virtual or show up at Donali Studio today at 4, you're welcome. It's from 4 to 6. It's real short, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll extend our gratitude to everyone for who watches now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us in our space, and we'll see you next Sunday. Peace and wisdom,
Balance, wholeness.
wholeness.